What's going on, everybody? This is another episode here in Nolan's Pod. Week 13 of the NFL did not disappoint at all. Let's get right into it. Let's run through some games really quick. The Miami Dolphins played the Packers on Thanksgiving. You know that the Miami Dolphins can't play in cold weather. Score ended up being 30-17 with a Green Bay win. The Raiders played Kansas City. The Raiders lost 17-19. Kansas City won barely on a botched snap by the Raiders. Everybody's been saying, is it a concern with Kansas City? I'm not concerned with Kansas City. The only thing I'm concerned with Kansas City about is their offensive line of them protecting Patrick Mahomes. Chargers and Falcons scored up being 17-13. That game was more about the Chargers' defense and them forcing Kirk Cousins to throw 4 interceptions. That game's a very winnable game for the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins is bloated by throwing 4 interceptions. Use the run game to y'all advantage, Falcons. You have Bijan Robinson. You have Tyler Algier. Use the running game to y'all advantage. If Kirk Cousins is out here throwing all these interceptions and the pass game is not working like we want it to be, you have a run game that you can use that's effective. Use the run game. We only allowed the Chargers 17 points and we still lost, all because Kirk Cousins is throwing 4 interceptions. Use the run game. And about 3 of those interceptions, Kirk Cousins, he's just forcing it. One of them was a pick 6, but 3 of them, he's just forcing it. One of them, it looked like he was trying to throw out of bounds and just didn't get enough on it and got intercepted in the end zone. Another reason he's throwing interceptions is because he's panicking. He gets pressure on him, he panics. Sometimes, Kirk Cousins, you can throw the ball away and not put the ball in harm's way. We're struggling right now. The Buccaneers beat the Carolina. They're 6-6. We're 6-6. The division is up for grabs. The only thing that we have working in our advantage is we have the tiebreaker against the Buccaneers because we swept the Buccaneers. Moving on, the Seahawks and the Jets, that score ended up being 26-21. Seahawks win, and the Jets losing the most Jets way after the Jets were up. And for most of this game, Aaron Rodgers, he just had a bad game. He had that interception that got took into the house. In the most Jets way, they just find a way. Instead of finding a way to win the game, they find a way to lose the game. No, Geno Smith did not have a spectacular game, but he made the huge plays when he needed to. And in a way, that was kind of a revenge game for Geno, facing his old team that drafted him. That NFC West is up for grabs with the Seahawks, man. Arizona lost against Minnesota. And then you got the 49ers. They're not looking good with their injuries. So that NFC West is up for grabs if any of those teams want it. Now, 2 games that I want to dive into really quickly is the Steelers and the Bengals, and of course Detroit, Chicago. Let's go. The Steelers, they let Russ cook, and it was vintage Russell Wilson. I mean, he just smoked the Cincinnati Bengals defense anytime he wanted to. And you have to give him credit when credit is due. As much as y'all like to get on Russell Wilson for having bad games, I haven't really heard, oh yeah, Russ had a very good game. We should give him credit for having a good game. I know it's the Cincinnati Bengals' horrible defense, but you still have to give credit when credit is due, and he still had a good game. Russell Wilson was 29 of 38 in completion and passing. He had 3 touchdowns. He had 1 interception that was a pick 6. He was sacked twice. Other than that, phenomenal game for Russell Wilson. Najee Harris had 16 carries for 75 yards. Najee had 1 touchdown. He had 6 receptions for 84 yards. Cordell Patterson had 3 carries for 16 yards. He had 3 receptions at Cordell Patterson for 37 yards. Jaylen Warren had 3 carries for 9 yards, 4 receptions for 55 yards. And one thing about it, Russ did not put the ball in harm's way except for that pick 6. Arthur Smith called a great game. Former Atlanta Falcons head coach Arthur Smith, now a Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator. He called a great game. Russ did not put the ball in harm's way, as I just mentioned. The only time he might put the ball in harm's way is if he's going to George Pickens. That's it, because George Pickens can go one-on-one against any corner in the league and catch the ball, because it's going to be up for grabs. Other than that, there's no need to put the ball in harm's way. Russell Wilson did a good job of not doing that. Arthur Smith did a good job of calling plays. And when you have 2 running backs like they do, and Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, you use that to your advantage. When you have a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley, you use that to your advantage. Falcons, please take a page out of these other teams' book with these running backs. Stop putting Kirk Cousins in harm's way. Use the running backs to your advantage. Please. Pat Freiermuth had 6 receptions for 68 yards. He had a touchdown. George Pickens, 3 receptions for 74 yards. He had a touchdown. Van Jefferson had 1 reception for 43 yards. Calvin Austin had 2 receptions for 19 yards and 1 touchdown. And Calvin Austin also left the game with an injury. Hopefully he's going to be okay. He got rocked on a tackle. So that's why he left the game. But hopefully he's going to be okay. On the flip side of that, poor Joe Burrow, he was 28-38. He had another good game. He had 309 offensive yards and thrown, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Joe Burrow was sacked 4 times. Joe Burrow fumbled twice, and he had 2 carries for 9 yards. One thing about Joe Burrow, he fumbled twice. One of those was a strip fumble. TJ Watt was coming behind Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow didn't see him. And TJ Watt just does what TJ Watt does. Create havoc and sack people and force them to fumble. Poor Joe Burrow. I just feel sorry for Joe Burrow. And one of the reasons why I feel sorry for Joe Burrow is because he's putting up an MVP-like season already. And he has nothing to show for it. His defense has regressed. Like none other. Cincinnati's offensive line was not good in this game. And then you have Jamar Chase, who's a team player. He shouldn't even be playing at all this season because he didn't get paid. But he's still risking it every single week, going out there playing, going out there being Jamar Chase and doing what Jamar Chase does best. Every week he's risking it. He didn't get paid. He shouldn't even be playing. They're having the kind of season that they're having. If I was Jamar Chase, I'll be like, I'm not even playing. I'm not playing. We ain't having the season we have, but he still goes out there and play. So if y'all ever wanted to say that Jamar Chase is not a team player, go look at this. Go look at this year. Go look at his contract situation. We know that he's supposed to have gotten paid. He didn't. And he's still out here playing, still out here putting up numbers in a down season for the team. Him and Joe Burrow. T. Higgins is probably not going to be back next year because they're going to pay Jamar Chase instead of T. Higgins. He's out there. He's been hurt this year numerous of times. He's busting his butt and going out there and playing. I feel sorry for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase because it's a great year for those two individually, and it's been wasted because the team around them, and specifically the defense, is not holding up their end of the bargain. They allowed 44 points in this game. The defense did. And the Cincinnati Bengals scored 38. The problem with the Bengals, they're going to put up numbers offensively. But the defense keeps getting into shootouts, like they got into the shootout with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Game going back and forth. No defense being played. Scored 44-38. You have to make a stop at some point in time. And this year alone, the defense has not been able to do that. Now, you can put some of the blame on Joe Burrow by saying, every year that Joe Burrow's been in the league, he hasn't been ready to play. When it's training camp, he hasn't been ready to play because he's dealing with some kind of injury. When it's September, they get off to these slow starts, and then they have to dig themselves back out of this hole. And we're wondering what Zach Taylor is doing to get this team prepared during training camp and during the offseason, because they get out to these horrible starts when they start the season. They have to pick themselves back up. So if you want to blame anything on Joe Burrow, you can blame him on not being healthy when the seasons get ready to be started. That means he's not playing preseason. That means they're going to get out to a slow start, and they're going to have to dig themselves behind the 8-ball. But still, Joe Burrow is putting up MVP-like numbers. It's the defense that's holding them back. You got Chad Ochocinco crying on the podcast with Shannon Sharp on Nightcap because Ocho's telling everybody that they're going to be fine. Cincinnati Bengals going to be okay. They're going to make a run this year. And then it just didn't happen. So that was hilarious. If you have not seen that, Chad Ochocinco really did cry. Go look at Nightcap with him and Shannon Sharp, and you will see for yourself what I'm talking about. Anyway, running back Chase Brown had 12 carries for 70 yards. He had 3 receptions for 30 yards. Jamar Chase had 6 receptions for 86 yards. He had a touchdown. T. Higgins had 5 receptions for 69 yards. 1 touchdown that T. Higgins had. Mike Gesicki had 5 receptions for 53 yards. Andrea Yosibas had 3 receptions for 35 yards and 1 touchdown for Yosibas. That concludes that game. Now, the game that I want to get into is Detroit, the Detroit Lions, and the Chicago Bears. Now, you guys know that this probably was going to happen. I told you this. Matt Eberflus is out as Chicago Bears head coach. Are we surprised? Nah, not really surprised. If you're a Bears fan, you should be happy. If you are an NFL fan and you just like the NFL period, and you like football period, you should be happy that Matt Eberflus is gone. First and foremost, I want to say, no, I don't like when people get fired. That's just like working a regular job out here and you get fired. Times are hard out here. But we're talking about sports. We ain't talking about people working a regular job in real life. We're talking about sports. We're talking about sports. And this man got fired. He deserved to get fired. For his decision making, he deserved to get fired. And it's not that the Chicago Bears weren't competing. The Bears were in every game that they played this season. It was just how they were losing at the end of these ball games that's winnable ball games. The Hail Mary play against Washington, the blocked field goal attempt, the clock management coming into this Detroit game. I mean, when you have 33 seconds on the clock, and you're in range to get a field goal to tie the game, and you have about 33 seconds on the clock, and your coach just lets the time run out, just lets all the time run out. When you have one timeout, and you don't call timeout, y'all don't get a playoff. That's how the game ends. And you think that the next day you're going to have a job? This was on national TV on Thanksgiving Day. Everybody gets to watch. It's not that it was a Sunday game and a lot of people can't see it, and then the local people that live in Chicago can't see it. No, this was national TV. The whole world can see this game. The whole world saw this game. The whole world saw this unfold. They saw what happened. We all seen it on Thanksgiving. We all seen it. Y'all had one timeout. Y'all let all the time run out. You didn't call a timeout. What are you doing, Matt Eberflus? What were you thinking? It's the way that y'all have lost these games that got you fired. It's not that they weren't competing or they weren't a competitive team, and that's why Eberflus got fired. It's the way they lost these games. Now, the blame is not only all the blame is not on Matt Eberflus. Some of the blame goes to Caleb Williams. You need to be downing the ball and stopping the clock. If y'all not going to call timeout, that should have been communicated. If y'all are not going to call timeout, Caleb Williams, you have to get up to the line of scrimmage, down the ball so the time can stop. So it's not only on Matt Eberflus. Some of the blame has to go to Caleb Williams too, but 80% of the blame falls on Matt Eberflus because you're the head coach and you had one timeout and you didn't call it. And Caleb Williams and all the rest of the guys are going up to the offensive line slowly. Like time's not ticking. They going up there slowly, not trying to hike the ball or spike the ball to get the time to stop. And you see this as a head coach, you should be calling timeout to stop the clock. That's the most idiotic way to lose a game. So I feel for the Chicago Bears fans, I really do. I'm glad that Matt Eberflus is gone. Matt Eberflus should have been fired last year. He should have been fired last year. The only thing that saved Matt Eberflus from not getting fired last year is because at the end of the year last year, the Bears finished winning games. At the end of the season, they finished winning games on the right foot. That's what saved Matt Eberflus' job. I thought Matt Eberflus should have been fired even after that last year, but they held on to it this year, and look what you get. Look what you get. So, this game, man, it was 16-0 at halftime. It was 16-0. Detroit was up 16. The Chicago Bears defense held Detroit to 16 points despite their offense not doing a darn thing. It didn't look good for Chicago, even though they were down 16-0. It just didn't look good because they couldn't get anything going in the first half. You have to give Chicago credit. They came out in the second half, and they had a better game in the second half. Caleb Williams was 20 of 39 in passing attempts and completions. He had 256 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was sacked 4 times. He was sacked 5 times. He had 4 carries for 39 yards to Caleb Williams. DeAndre Swift had 11 carries for 39 yards. DJ Moore had 8 receptions for 97 yards, 1 touchdown, 8 receptions for 97 yards and 1 touchdown did DJ Moore have. Keenan Allen had 5 receptions for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cole Kmet had 3 receptions for 26 yards. Rome Odunze had 2 receptions for 25 yards. Caleb Williams was hitting Keenan Allen on some darts. He had 2 touchdowns to Keenan Allen. He hit DJ Moore on the dart. He had a touchdown. One thing that I will say is they had a much better second half, but you wouldn't even know that because what do we continuously have to talk about? Clock management at the end of this ball game when you were in field goal position. You make a field goal, it's tied. We probably more than likely go to overtime, more than likely. But we're not talking about the great second half that the Chicago Bears had to get back in this game. We're talking about the coaching decision, the coach getting fired, Caleb Williams playing a part in this too by not downing the ball. We're not even talking about Detroit. We're not even talking about the fact that Detroit had a nice lead and they took their foot off the gas just like they did in the NFC Championship game last year. If I had a concern about Detroit, this is the only concern I have. They took their foot off the gas pedal in this game in the second half. And they didn't play like they've been playing in the second half. They didn't do that in the second half. In the NFC Championship last year, they took their foot off the gas pedal in the NFC Championship game. They were supposed to went to the Super Bowl last year, but they took their foot off the gas pedal. They did it in this game too. But we're not talking about that. Detroit still won this game 23-20. We're talking about Matt Eberflus, his coaching decision, and him being fired, and possibly what's next for the Chicago Bears, which is you have a bright future in Caleb Williams. You have DeAndre Swift. You have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. in Cole Kmet and the rookie Rome Odunze. You have the offensive pieces around you. Whoever the next coach is has to come through. They have got to come through. You have the pieces on this roster to get it done. When they had Justin Fields, when they had Mitchell Trubisky, everybody tried to blame it on Mitchell Trubisky. Everybody tried to blame it on Justin Fields. Everybody's trying to blame this thing on Caleb Williams. If you have good coaching in the NFL, you can be successful. It's the same thing with the Falcons. The dumb coaches on the Falcons don't know how to utilize two good running backs on the ball club. Same thing with the Baltimore Ravens. John Harbaugh has been in this thing long enough. So has Todd Monken. When they lose, it's because they didn't utilize Derrick Henry. When they win, it's because they utilize Derrick Henry. But it's coaching. A lot of these coaches are dumb and cannot coach for some reason. You even go to the Falcons game when we just played the Chargers. A dumb coaching decision on the Chargers' part. They go for a fake punt and try to throw it and didn't get it on the Falcons side of the field. But dumb Kirk Cousins, we didn't get anything out of it. We only got a stupid field goal out of it. That's dumb coaches on the Chargers' part. By going for a fake punt on the Falcons side. That's dumb coaching right there. We're not talking about that because the Chargers won and Kirk Cousins threw 4 interceptions. But it's coaching. If Chicago could find the right coach to minimize these guys' talent, they're going to be just fine. Matt Eberflus just was not the guy. That's all I have for you guys. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on Matt Eberflus getting fired. Let me know that he deserved to get fired. Let me know what you thought about this week in the NFL, man. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about Trevor Lawrence being hit by I cannot say his name to save my life. Aziz Shair, however you say it. We're gonna talk about that tomorrow. And how these guys think it was a dirty hit, which it was, but we're going to get into it furthermore tomorrow.